What you just saw was done on an unmodified copy of Pokemon Emerald without hacking. Well, without hacking the copy of Pokemon Emerald anyway. Let's rewind a bit. In April of 2023, I made this video. It covers how I was able to use the e-reader, an oft-forgotten GBA accessory that scans special trading cards, to add brand new content into just Ruby and Sapphire. Fast forward 2 months, and I made another video on how I made one more new event, a Jirachi, and how I ported my events to all non-English languages of Ruby and Sapphire. But I didn't port them to Emerald, Fire Red, or Leaf Green. Why is this? It's because those games, internationally, have their e-reader functionality removed. To use the e-reader as I did in Ruby and Sapphire, we need to access this menu option, Mystery Event. And if we look at Emerald, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, they do not have Mystery Event. They have Mystery Gift. While the name is similar, the functionality is not. Mystery Gift works with the wireless adapter for official events like the Aurora ticket, the Mystic ticket, or the PCNY Wish Eggs, and many others. However, as many people have pointed out, you can unlock Mystery Event in the Japanese copy of Pokemon Emerald only. But I never made anything for this because I didn't want to only cater towards Japanese games, especially when my audience is mostly English speaking. And Fire Red and Leaf Green don't even have Mystery Event in any language. But when I sat down to make more events for Ruby and Sapphire, a thought occurred to me. Surely the Mystery Event function wasn't removed from the English copy of Emerald. It was probably just taken off the menu. And looking at some ROM hacks that restore this function, I was right. That means Mystery Event is sitting in the game somewhere waiting for us to find it. So let's talk about how I'll restore e-reader functionality to Pokemon Emerald. Pokemon Emerald actually has some e-cards officially released for it in Japan, for Trainer Hill. But we're not going to utilize the way those work. Its official e-card support is through Mystery Gift. Let me explain. Mystery Gift typically works with just the wireless adapter. But in Japanese Emerald, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, if the wireless adapter is not plugged in, it turns on e-reader mode, where it sends a special program to the e-reader called a multi-boot. And then you scan cards using the Connect to GBA function. I actually do not know how these cards work or how this multi-boot works at all, and I do not want to figure it out, because that would be a lot of extra work. But Mystery Event also exists in Japanese Emerald, and as far as I'm aware, was never used. No e-cards exist that work with it, even the official ones, but otherwise it's the same as Ruby and Sapphire, and I should be able to use it if I can get it to show up. No matter how hard you try though, the Mystery Event option will never appear on the main menu of a non-Japanese copy of Pokemon Emerald. So what is my method to get the Mystery Event screen to show up? Well, initially I did it with the Dark Arts, Arbitrary Code Execution. This glitch lets you run custom code via the names of your Pokemon storage system boxes by viewing a glitch Pokemon's summary screen. My code calls the Mystery Event function, and bam, it shows up in English Emerald. This was awesome, and it confirmed that this function fully worked. Immediately, I try to scan an e-card and I get an error message. The data cannot be used in this version. This is to be expected though, the e-cards are for Ruby and Sapphire and not for Emerald. To fix this, we're going to have to bust out every ROM hacker's least favorite and most useful tool, a hex editor. I've got to poke into the card's header and change the game version bit field. I set it to Emerald, I recompile it, and it still doesn't scan. I get the same error message. This is because my English Emerald is still identifying as a Japanese Emerald to the e-reader for some reason. So I've got to set the language of the card to Japanese, even though it's not. And with that, my custom Celebi card scanned. This was a big breakthrough. So let's load back up the save and whoa, why is everything pink? What happened? Apparently, the game does not like a main menu function being called while you're in the overworld. Upon further inspection, Mystery Event seemed to be wiping out all of the tiles on the map that is for one screen. And then when the game saves, that map state is somehow preserved. I tried going to multiple different areas to see if maybe a specific place would not corrupt, but no matter where I went, sometimes the map would corrupt and sometimes it wouldn't. There seemed to be no consistency to it at all. After a ton of trial and error, I finally noticed a pattern. Every time I went to a new area, the map wouldn't corrupt. And that's when it dawned on me. It's because I saved the game whenever I got to a new area. That's the key. So long as you save before you call this function, the map won't corrupt. Why? I have absolutely no idea. So now we've got an ACE code that can call the unused function, but I don't want to make everyone have to use a glitch to access this. Ideally, I would like something more permanent and professional looking. So, using the game's scripting language, I wrote an event script tied to the mystery gift man on the second floor of the Poke Center that will call this function for you. This is a simple script that checks if you're in wireless mode, makes you save the game, and then calls mystery event. To get it into the game, I reached out to Gapier and Undead Reality, who have previously modified the Aurora Ticket distribution ROM to send over all kinds of events, to see if they could send this one over. After a bit of help from Undead to clean up the script to get it properly working in XSE, Gapier kindly put this little script into the ROM and even made a custom mystery event graphic for it. If you want to learn how they did all of this for yourself, check out their video on editing that ROM. It's a great watch. Thanks again, you two. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't just use this system to insert all of my events. Well, there's two reasons. One, the mystery gift function will always set the event to trigger on the mystery gift man on the second floor of the Poke Center, meaning I cannot put all of my events in unique locations. It would just be a battle or a gift from him, which is kind of lame. And then the second reason is that my scripts are way too big for the mystery gift man and for the Aurora Ticket ROM, unfortunately. Now, anyone, anywhere can easily get mystery event in their copy of Pokemon Emerald. I'll cover how you can use the Aurora Ticket ROM or the WC3 file at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's test it out. It worked perfectly, so let's go check Celebi out. It's here at this tree, and this is fine. I expected it to crash here. This is the unaltered Ruby and Sapphire code, after all. Emerald will, of course, have some differences that I need to account for. So, before I make any new events, I want to show what I had to do to get Celebi working in Emerald, and all the challenges that came with it. The first thing I had to do is fix the functions. In my first two DLC videos, I make mention of how I use in-game functions, like calculate Boxmon checksum, or set Boxmon data, to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. Well, all of those functions have different locations in Emerald's ROM, so anytime I call them, I'll need to change that address in my custom script. In addition, RAM locations are also changed, like where the enemy party is or where my party is. So I'll have to change all of those as well. I do that, and it still crashes. But only sometimes? What the heck's going on here? This is all thanks to Emerald's anti-cheat feature. Starting in Fire Red and Leaf Green, Game Freak decided to try and counteract people playing with an action replay. It's why if you've ever used an AR code for those games, but not ran the anti-DMA code, you'll have random bag pouches corrupted with tons of items, or your PC is all mucked about with. The way it works is simple. Every time the overworld is loaded, which happens when you load a game, leave any submenu, enter a battle, or enter a building, the game randomizes the position of where the save file is in RAM to one of 32 unique positions. This is called address space layout randomization, shortened to ASLR, and the solution should be easy, but it wasn't. Let's take a look at what the first problem was. Static calls. If we take a look at one of the events I've made, we'll notice this command, call ASM 02029441. This is me calling some custom assembly code I've written and stored somewhere in the game. The 02029441 is like that of an address in a neighborhood. It's saying where the function is in the game. But my custom script, and therefore my custom code, is stored within the save file, which is subject to ASLR changes, which means that address will not have the same code every time. But for my script to function, it needs to. My next thought was to call the overworld reload function repeatedly until the ASLR lined up with the lowest possible value, so that I would never need to change any of the addresses. The first issue was that the screen would flash repeatedly until the correct ASLR position showed up, making for an unpleasant user experience. To fix this, my friend Xiao suggested that instead of reloading the overworld repeatedly, we reload it once and force the ASLR to load at its lowest value. The ASLR's position is determined by two things: the game's current PRNG value and an offset that is based on your trainer ID. The 4 bytes that make your trainer ID up are added together, and then that is added to your current RNG state. To force the ASLR to be the lowest possible value, we have to make this process result in a 0. To do this, we have to subtract our added together TID from 0, then we set that number as the current PRNG state, and then reverse the RNG by 1. After this, I freeze the RNG so that it doesn't move passively, because otherwise it would move while calling the overworld reload function and mess all of this up. So then I call the overworld reload function, which does 1 RNG advancement, adds my TID to the RNG state, which results in a 0, and we have the lowest possible ASLR position in only 1 screen flash. I don't think it looks too bad. I don't love that the flash is there, but it's acceptable to me. This, though, causes another problem, which is that because the ASLR's position is based on the game's RNG sequence, I would effectively ignore all Pokemon that could spawn on the other ASLR positions, drastically reducing how many potential unique PIDs that could spawn. This, too, was an easy fix. all we have to do is, before changing the RNG seed, preserve the current seed somewhere else. And then when I generate a Pokemon, use that preserved seed instead of whatever is currently in RAM. I do both of these with one call ASM, but since this is the first function called, it could be in any ASLR position, right? How do I handle this? Well, it's simple. The ASLR takes up 128 bytes. So when I store this function in memory, I leave 128 bytes of zeros above it. So no matter where it lands, if it calls a spot that has no code, it just does nothing until it hits my custom code. So at this point, all should be done, yeah? I've changed the function addresses, frozen the ASLR. I don't think there's anything else, right? Well, let's check. And lo and behold, the battle with Celebi works perfectly. And why is it a bad egg when I catch it? Why does sometimes the game crash? Why does sometimes the battle restart? What's going on? Here's the deal. Getting into a battle also changes the ASLR, and I have no control over the game while you're in a battle. And because RAM script, where my entire script is stored, is in ASLR space, when the game tries to return to it, it doesn't know where it is, and a random part of the script loads. This was so bad, I thought it'd be impossible to do all of my events as battles. The developers likely never intended for this to be possible at all. Every single event is either an item to go to a battle, which is pre-programmed in the game's ROM, which is stuff like the Southern Island Lattes or Deoxys, or they're a gift that the NPC gives you in the Poke Center without being a battle, like the PCNY Wish Eggs. My way around this is insanely hacky, as is everything when applying it to Emerald version. In short, I copy the entire ending of the script, post-battle, into a different spot in RAM. Then I make sure that there's 128 bytes of zeros in front of it, and while I do the memory copy, I update the pointer to the script RAM to make sure that when the battle ends, it returns to the proper location. And when do I have the time to do all of this? Just as the battle intro loads. You see, if you call a battle through the special command instead of the do wild battle command, and you don't put a wait state after special, the script will continue to execute as if it's not trying to load a battle. So I take advantage of this weird behavior to do a call ASM to do a memory copy. Then I put an 80 frame pause so that the battle will load as normal. And then when the battle ends, just like the ASLR compensation, the script hits a bunch of no-ops until it can continue. It's clunky, but it works. But where am I copying the script to? And if I had so much trouble fitting Jirachi and Celebi before, how do I have the extra space for all of this new code? Well, I am also sending a bunch of data to areas of the save RAM that are used for other things, but that I thought would not interfere with regular gameplay very much. The first area I'm sending to is the Battle E card location in RAM, which is 160 bytes. This is completely unused in international copies of Emerald, so don't worry about that. But I'm also sending it to the Battle Tower record mix section. This is a feature I didn't even realize existed, but when you record mix with a friend, if they have a streak in the Battle Tower, they send their current trainer's party over to your game, and you can encounter them in the Battle Tower when you hit their streak, roughly. There's 6 spots in the game's memory for this. 1 for yourself so that you can send you to other people, and 5 for you to receive others. I'll note now that this is not the literal records that appear in the record hall in Emerald or something like that. This is just their NPC. I am utilizing the space of the 5 you can receive and not the 1 that you send to others. This means that if you've got someone's NPC in there and it's special to you, I'd recommend not doing my events, because loading the events in will erase those NPCs. In addition, this means that there's some places you cannot enter because these are invalid trainers and their checksums will fail, and it will cause my events to bug out. In Emerald, you cannot start a Battle Tower challenge or a Trainer Hill challenge. In Ruby and Sapphire, you cannot enter the Battle Tower or enter the E-Reader House in Moss Deep. Wait, Ruby and Sapphire? What do those have to do with this? I thought this was just about getting stuff to work in Emerald. Well, when I sat down to do this project, it was because I wanted to make more DLC for Ruby and Sapphire. But since I have to use this extra space to make it work in Emerald at all, I figured I might as well go all out and also use it to make my new events more interesting for all 3 games. So what Pokemon did I choose for this DLC? Well, I wanted to do some Pokemon from Colosseum, the legendary beasts in particular. I chose the beasts for 2 reasons. One is, without Colosseum, the only way to get them in Gen 3 is from Fire Red and Leaf Green. And 2 is, in those games, you can only get 1 of the 3 in the post-game. And thanks to a glitch, the IVs are bugged to mostly be zeros. So, from a competitive perspective, they're a bit worthless. But now as a bonus, you don't have to play Fire Red or Colosseum, the worst Gen 3 games. The way I'll be implementing them is very similar to Celebi. Unlike in Fire Red and Leaf Green, the Colosseum beasts generate without any bugs. So I'll have to implement that RNG algorithm into the game. It's almost the same as the Celebi one, but they don't have a set trainer ID and secret ID, and they don't have a shiny lock. If you want to know the full coding details of the Celebi and Jirachi RNG algorithms, you can check out those videos. For the most part, this ends up looking like the Jirachi algorithm, but with the Celebi code in it, with a removed shiny lock. The only meaningful difference from those two is how catching works. For Celebi and Jirachi, because they have a bunch of set data that cannot change, and because catching a Pokemon that doesn't have your trainer ID and secret ID, which they do not, causes them to turn into a bad egg, the way I have them caught is very odd. I basically let the game put a bad egg into your party, and then I delete it by copying the Pokemon from enemy RAM into your party. It works out okay, but the beasts don't have that problem. Catch location and game origin actually don't change on catch, and the OTID and trainer name will be yours. You can also catch them in any Pokeball, because all Pokeballs are available to use on the legendary beasts in Pokemon Coliseum if you catch them in the post-game area, the Deep Coliseum. So that's what I set the catch location as. The one piece of set data is the trainer gender, which has to be male, because you, for some unbelievable reason, cannot play as a woman in Pokemon Coliseum. So instead of doing that whole convoluted copy routine, I just call the in-game function setBoxMonData, and I force the OT gender of the Pokemon to be male after you catch it. And I cannot stress this enough. These Pokemon, all my prior and these new events, read as legal in PKHeX and in Pokemon Home. You can fully transfer these mons up and they're shiny huntable. As far as the game is concerned, they are legal. There is no distinction between a Celebi from the bonus disc or my Celebi that I generate with the event. Same with all of these legendary beasts. Now, you don't have to view them as fully legitimate if you don't want to, but as far as the games are concerned, you cannot tell. The game cannot tell, you could never know. You could show this to a friend, you could show this to PKHeX, there's no way to know. But what did I do with all that extra space? Well, I made 3 brand new quests in the vein of the Regi puzzles. You see, while working on making the events function in Emerald, I realized I had to make runaways possible if I wanted people to be able to shiny hunt in that game. This is because Emerald's RNG is always bugged if you're soft resetting. But for some reason, in all of my events in Ruby and Sapphire, if you run away, the encounter is deleted, even though I don't tell it to do that. And then I realized this happens because when I save the Celebi and Jirachi to copy into your party later, I write them over the original Celebi and Jirachi location. RamScript, the place where all of these events are stored, has a checksum. A checksum is a kind of tamper seal that checks if all the data in RamScript is as it should be. Because I am changing the Celebi and Jirachi data, RamScript's checksum fails. So I have to make a function that calculates RamScript's checksum and stores it in the proper location. And if I do that, the runaways will work. Fixing this, along with utilizing the extra space, is really what let me do all of the more complex stuff I'm about to show you. You see, doing this lets me change what NPC can call my script, because the NPC that calls the script is actually stored within the script. So all I have to do is change that number and then calculate RamScript's checksum again, and it will work. With this idea in my head, I got to work on my plan. My general structure was this: have an NPC tell you they're hunting for the legendary beasts, and they will give you a clue to one of their locations. The new location has a small puzzle that unlocks either the beast or a second puzzle. Complete the second puzzle, encounter the beast, and then the next card continues the quest. The obvious choice for this NPC would be Hoenn from Pokemon Crystal. I can't make custom sprites, so I just found an NPC that was in a few different locations who kind of looked like Hoenn's Gen 2 sprite, since back then it was just a regular NPC instead of a custom sprite like in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I also decided to make these quests have an order: Entei first, Raikou second, and Suicune last. So I'm using some unused flags in the game's code to make sure that you're using the correct order. The last thing I wanted to do for all 3 puzzles is incorporate the Braille mechanic that Gen 3 has. It's one of the more memorable things about the Regi puzzles, so I had to include it. Luckily, the Braille script command is pretty easy to use, but there is no Braille script table online that I could find. So I had to then spend a couple of hours brute forcing which Braille characters are which hex number, and then I had to rearrange them into the proper order. Once it was all worked out, it was time to start designing the quests and puzzles. It was during my programming of the quest lines that I hit my final big hurdle: utilizing this extra space. The way e-cards work is very simple. You tell it what type of program you want to make, and it sends data to the proper location. But it can also be one type of program at a time. So it can either send to RamScript, or it can send to the Battle E trainer location. But I not only needed to go to both of those places, I also needed to go to the other unintended locations. Now, the nice part about sending something to RamScript is that you get like a little bonus script that you can use called the preload script. This is temporarily loaded into the game and is used to check flags to see if the event should be rejected or something. I realize this space does not have a size limit other than the maximum size of the shared RAM location, which both GBAs use during a link up. What I did was utilize this space by storing all of my code byte by byte in the proper locations using the write byte to address function. This writes a single byte to a specific location in RAM, one at a time. I originally tried to write a memory copy routine to save space because this command is 6 bytes long, but whenever I tried to use call ASM into shared RAM, the game would crash. And MGBA's debugger doesn't work during link mode, so I couldn't really figure out the problem. This means half of my card is written in this horribly ugly method that looks like this. The way I ended up programming this, and the Braille actually, was in Google Sheets, thanks to my good friend Papa Hefe. This sheet can automatically convert strings of hex code to write byte to address commands for me, and regular text to Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Braille. And I think that's basically every challenge I overcame. At this point, I want to warn you. There are spoilers ahead for the puzzles, dialogue, and everything related to these events ahead. When I say there are spoilers, I mean it. These are multi-step and very involved puzzles, each being 30+ minutes of gameplay, depending on how long it takes you to figure them out and translate all the Braille. So, if you want to experience these events on your own, skip to this time code. At that time code, I'll talk about how I made the cards, how you can get the events into your game, and the winners of the giveaway from my original video. Okay, so to all of you who do not mind spoilers, let's showcase the events. First up is Entei. You'll meet Yusin in Mount Pyre. I figured it was the closest place in Hoenn to the burned tower from Johto, and this NPC looks quite a bit like them, I think. Yusin will say they heard a rumor that the legendary beasts are in Hoenn, and that they found a clue as to where Entei could be hiding. They want you, a strong trainer, to help them find all the beasts, so that they can see Suicune. They tell you to check for some ancient text in Fiery Path and walk away. I have Yusin disappear after every cutscene they're in. This is for immersion purposes. You see, after I change the NPC to the boulder in Fiery Path, this person just becomes the normal Zigzagoon morning NPC again, so I do my best to hide it. After that, in Fiery Path, you'll get a Braille message on the boulder in front of you. This is the first puzzle. The Braille says, "I end where I begin." The boulder is referring to itself, and you need to move the boulder from its starting position back to it, and then talk to it again. After that, you'll hear an unknown cry and get another message. It says, "We are free. In the ash, bring X to me." What happens here is I've released a horde of unknown on Route 113, and you have to bring the letter it tells you back to the message. It's a randomized letter, so everyone's experience should be a little bit different. I chose unknown for this as a reference to Pokemon the Third movie, where Entei has a strong connection to unknown. Once you catch and bring the unknown back, the battle with Entei starts. And after you catch it, you'll get a message saying the adventure will continue on the next E card. Raikou is next, who I think has the toughest puzzle I've made, and also my favorite. Yusin is on the daycare route this time, and when you talk to them, they say they've got a clue to Raikou's location in Granite Cave. Once you head there, the Rock Smash Rock will have Braille on it. It says, "Read this slowly in the clouds." This is referring to your text speed and menu border. It has to be set to slow and to the cloud border, which is 9. Once that's done, you'll hear some thunder and another message will appear. It says, "I am hidden where thunder may clap." What you have to do is find Raikou on Route 119. 119 is special because it's the only route that can rain that can also have thunder and lightning as a weather. The other 2 routes in this gen only get rain. Once there, you need to find Raikou on a hidden Kecleon block. Talk to it, and it will tell you in Braille, a brutal move of lightning must ring victorious. This means you need to defeat a Pokemon in the rain with the move Thunder. Once you do that, talk to the Kecleon block again and you'll battle Raikou. Raiku's puzzle isn't really based on anything in particular other than that it can summon storm clouds. It didn't have a strong movie like Entei did, and it did have a Pokemon Generation special, but there was nothing substantive in there that I could use particularly. But after you catch it, the same message will show again, and then we have our final quest, which is for Suicune. I wanted to do something cool here, which was take the player to Mirage Island. So Hoenn, who is now above Mauville, tells the player that the final clue is somewhere in Victory Road. The challenge here is to find which boulder. But once you do, you'll get the Braille message that says, "Waste no step. I am where mirages live." The goal here is to get to the berry tree on Mirage Island in as little as steps as possible. I force Mirage Island to spawn by copying your party lead's PID into the Mirage Island section on the save file, so it'll always show up on that route. If you take too many steps, you'll get a Braille message that says to try again. If you succeeded, the battle with Suicune starts. And then after you catch it, you'll get a Lepa Berry. In addition, in Ruby and Sapphire, if you bring Suicune back to Hoenn, you'll get a reward. Your choice of one of the 3 Johto starters. This was a big fat hack that I added on last minute, but all 3 of them are Coliseum legal middle stages. They come nicknamed, but you can change it, and they're also all level 90. This is for a reason I can't really explain, and I don't feel like changing it. In Emerald, I couldn't fit this, and that's because of the preload script. I mentioned earlier in the video that theoretically I have about 960 extra bytes to work with, but there was a weird limit, and this is that limit. If I ever make an e-card so big it becomes 3 .code strips long, it always fails to transfer. I'm not sure why. It could be shared RAM being too small, but it could be something else. But because Emerald has to send over code Ruby and Sapphire does not, the ASLR code, I couldn't fit this last section into the card without making it 3 strips long. So I opted to make it a separate card just for Emerald. But you could still get the Johto starter you want that way, so it's not too big of a deal. And that's all 3 events. In addition, both Celebi and Jirachi are also ported to Emerald, along with the Eon ticket. So let's talk about how you get these events into your game. I did them with these, custom printed and designed e-cards. And this, a GBA flash cart with Gapier and Undead's Aurora ticket hack. These cards are slightly different from last time because the cards are 2 .codes long. So I make the back portrait accommodate for that space, and bam, we've got it. Now, how can you get these into your game? Unfortunately, this time you just have 2 methods. I'll also be uploading a companion piece to this video next week that is just covering how to get them into your game. But here's the short version. Method 1 is print eReader.codes yourself. To do this, you'll need a photo inkjet printer. I use an ancient HP 7960. They don't make it anymore, update its drivers anymore, or even sell its ink anymore. And I use this program, NetC Print, which I think is Windows only. You download the .raw files I provide on my GitHub, and you send it to the printer using NetC Print. Your printer must be a photo printer. An easy way to tell is if it's got 3 ink cartridges. Getting the .codes to read is a bit finicky, but try all 3 DPI options in .code print and different printer settings. You should also be using glossy photo paper to print, and give your paper some time to dry. In addition, after they're dried, scan the cards slowly. My original prints were a lot better, but ever since I fixed my printer, it's a bit finicky on the scan. But if you can print and scan, you can send the card over using a regular e-reader. The other method is using an emulator to scan the card. If you've got a way to back up your GBA save to the computer, which there are dozens of, just put the save on an emulator, open up a new multiplayer window on MGBA, and load an e-reader ROM. Then click the scan .code option and click the .raw file you downloaded. From there, the card will scan automatically, and it's the same as a regular GBA. Unfortunately, these cards cannot work by saving to file. The e-reader does not have a big enough save RAM to hold an e-card that's 2 strips long. Kinda sucks, but what can you do? And that's how the e-reader works. But what about the Wonder card to enable Mystery Event on Emerald? Well, for that, you've also got 2 options, and the first is using a more traditional method. For this, you'll need 2 GBAs, 2 wireless adapters, a copy of Emerald, and a GBA flash cart. Put the Mystery Event distro ROM onto your flash cart and load it up with a wireless adapter plugged in. In the second GBA, put in your Emerald and the other wireless adapter and make sure you've got Mystery Gift unlocked. Go to Mystery Gift from the main menu and select Wonder Cards, and then select Receive from Wireless. And then all you've got to do is head to the Mystery Event Man in green on the 2nd floor of a Poke Center. The second method is to use Soloku's Mystery Gift tool. This is a tool for a DS flash cart or computer that you can put event files directly onto your save with. All you have to do is select your save file and load the WC3 file I provide into the program, and then click Save. When you load up Emerald again, you'll have the Wonder card and the Mystery Event Man already at the Poke Center. Okay, so I'm about to pick the winner of the giveaway from the last video. If you don't remember, if you typed this phrase, "I love the Nintendo e-reader," into the comments, you'd be entered in a chance to win the giveaway, where I would make a set of the e-cards and send them to you. The same giveaway is going to apply to this video. The only reason this took me so long to do was because my printer was broken for several months, and it's working now. And so the week that I upload this video, I'm going to stream myself making the e-cards and doing the event. So stay tuned for that, and comment this phrase, "I love the Nintendo e-reader," if you want to win a set for yourself. I'm going to hit continue and see. It's going to load a bunch of comments first. I have no idea who it is, so we're going to just take a look. These take a really long time to make, so that's, it's not why I'm not trying to make dozens of these sets, but let's see. 416 comments, okay. Brina Zarski is the winner. If you're watching this video, comment down below, but I'll do my best to find you in the comments and reply to you. So congratulations to you. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.